Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video, which is going to be my review of the new Colourpop Main Squeeze eyeshadow palette. I'm going to demo this look for you and give you my thoughts on this palette. So without any further delay, let's get right into it. Colourpop released this eyeshadow palette for their anniversary collection. I'm not exactly sure how many years anniversary it is. The whole collection was watermelon themed, which explains the outer packaging. As you can see, I find it very, very cute. It's called the Main Squeeze eyeshadow palette, and this is the only item that I picked up from the collection. I think they were doing a gift with purchase during the anniversary, and so they did give me this Super Shock eyeshadow, which is labeled number 5, so I'm thinking it's their 5-year anniversary. I didn't use this eyeshadow yet, but I did want to show it to you since it did come along with my purchase. I wasn't initially gonna purchase the eyeshadow palette, but I follow this Instagram account. It's called xoxo deals or something like that. I will put the handle on the screen so that you can check it out if you're interested. They shared that the Colourpop birthday collection was on this app called Dote, which is like a shopping app. I'd never really heard of it, but I signed up, and the reason why I purchased it through that app is because they had free shipping, and with their discount code it was like $5 off. So I ended up paying like $9 for the eyeshadow palette. Normally it retails for $12 on the Colourpop website, but there's a minimum shipping fee of $35 to the US, and I wasn't gonna pay $6 shipping just for this palette. So I'm glad that I got to get it on the Dote app. There was like a fee for purchase, like maybe $1 or something. Bottom line is I ended up paying about $9 for the palette, and I think that it was a very good deal. This is a typical Colourpop 9-pan eyeshadow palette. Each pan inside has 1 gram of product. Now this one is not labeled eyeshadow palette, it is labeled pressed powder palette because 3 of these shades are not deemed eye safe, and that's possibly because of the red pigments potentially causing staining with the eye. I do like the Colourpop eyeshadow palettes that are in the 9 pans because you do have this nice firm outer packaging, and you also have a mirror inside, which is always nice to have. So here's what the eyeshadow palette looks like. All of the names are listed on the eyeshadow palette itself, which is really nice, and they're very much themed with red type objects like Frosé, Home Slice, Like It Hot, Maraschino, etc. And these are what your shades look like. Now, just in case you were interested, the ones that are not deemed eye safe are Like It's Hot, Maraschino, and Home Slice. I have applied them all to my eyes and I haven't had any problem, but I did decide that maybe to avoid staining, which is potentially what they're warning about, I did put down an eyeshadow base, which was my MAC Paint Pot, and I set that down with powder, which was my Glossier Water. I do have 2 shades that I prefer in the palette that I think were just genius. The first one is this one called Juicy Fruit. I really like this eyeshadow because in the pan it looks kind of like a bronzy gold kind of shade. When I shift it, you may get the impression that it's a little bit of a duochrome, and when you apply it to the eye, it has a really nice tangerine shift, and that's what I have on the inner corner of my eye today. I also really like the shade Red Bottoms because I think it was just a great inclusion to completing a cohesive color story. It's a really great shade to deepen out the outer V for any shade that you might choose in the entire palette. As I was using it, I did notice that some of the shades were a little bit powdery. This is specifically true for the shade Big Gulp. I did use this shade in my look today, and I will demo how powdery it got when I dipped my brush in there. That's not typical for Colourpop eyeshadows in my experience, but it's just something I noticed about this shade in particular. I didn't notice that about any of the others. In this palette, you have 5 mattes and you have 4 shimmers. The 4 shimmers are those right here. They apply very well even with a dry brush, but I did prefer to apply them with a brush that was dampened with setting spray just to intensify the color and also get it to adhere to my lid a little bit better since I do have hooded eyes. Let's go ahead and get into the demo of the eye look so that you can see how the shades perform, and then I'll come back and just give you a couple of final thoughts on the palette. So I've already had to remove my makeup once today because it wasn't working out the way I planned, and so whenever that happens, I just do my eyes first and I go from there. So we are going to use the Colourpop Main Squeeze eyeshadow palette, and here are your shades. I used 5 shades in this look, and I started with the shade Big Gulp. I don't know if you can see, but the shade is quite powdery. I dipped in my brush really lightly, and you can see how much kickback you have in the Big Gulp shade. I'm applying the shade with the Sonia G Blender Pro brush, and I'm just basically using it as a transition shade, applying it most heavily in the actual crease and then blending it outward and upward. We're now going to go into the shade Some Like It Hot. I'm using a Smith 247 for this, and this shade is not nearly as powdery as the original shade that we use. So I'm just going to apply this one a little bit lower. For my deepening shade, I'm going to use the shade Red Bottoms here, and this is one of my favorite shades in the palette. This is a Royal and Langnickel BOM 48 smudger brush. And I'm just applying this to the outer corner of my eye. I'm using kind of stamping motions at first, and then slightly pressing motions. I like the shade because it really deepens all of the other colors in the palette really, really well. I think it was a very necessary shade in the palette. Then I'm just going to give it a quick blend using the previous brush, and I didn't add any additional product, I'm just blending it out. I'm on my lid. I'm using a combination of this shade and this shade down here. This is my second favorite shade in the palette because, as you'll see, it really pulls very tangerine on the eye, and it looks a little bit different than it does in the pan. Now these shades apply okay on a dry brush, but I did prefer it using a damp brush. So I did spray my brush with the Anastasia Dewy Set makeup fixing spray. And my brush is a Sonia G Smudger 2 brush, so as you can see, this shade has a lot of tangerine in it, which I really like. In hindsight, probably putting this shade all over the lid would have made for a very pretty look too. I'm applying this one also damp with the Morphe G15 brush. I am going to re-intensify that outer corner with a little bit more of the shade Red Bottoms. And lastly, I'm going to give it one final blend across the crease because I really don't want it to be such a sharp cut crease kind of look. Just one more good blend. I'm going to briefly pop out to do my liner, my lashes, the rest of my face, and we'll be back for the lower lash line. I'm gonna go in the shade Red Bottoms to line my lower lash line. I'm just using an Aesthetica brush that I got in my BoxyCharm, and I'm just going to stamp that shade all along the lower lash line and stopping maybe like 2/3 of the way in. This is really the simplest lower lash line ever, but I don't want to skip any steps. So I'm gonna finish it off with the shade Frosé. I'm using a Royal and Langnickel small crease brush, and I'm just going to run this all along the lower lash line. I love these false lashes so much. I got them in a BoxyCharm. They're by Baddington Lashes. They're in the style Monroe, and a lot of people were saying they didn't like these lashes, but they just blend with my natural lashes so well. Once I put them on a few times, I really like the way that they look. As far as falsies go, they're the most natural looking ones in terms of the blend. I do want to clean up my waterline because I've had a little bit of transfer from my tight line. Then I'm gonna use a little bit of this waterline pencil. This is by Essence. Is it Essence? No, this is Rimmel. I just want to brighten up that inner waterline. Finish it up with the lower lash mascara. These lashes are on sale at Beauty Bay right now. I think they're clearing them out, and I'm so tempted to order a couple of pairs. This is your finished eye look. I'm playing around with a couple of other products, so I'm gonna leave this here. I will be back with the finished look, of course, and my final thoughts about the palette. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing the demo. Now, overall, I have to say that the eyeshadow palette quality is really good. I've come to expect that from Colourpop. I've actually been really impressed with the quality that they can achieve at the price point that they have. I think it's really great. And these little monochromatic 9-pan eyeshadow palettes are especially nice. They're kind of along the same vein as the Huda Beauty Obsessions palettes that are all themed around a specific color, and this one obviously is a more red tone palette. Now, if you own something like the Jeffree Star Blood Sugar palette or the Huda Beauty Ruby Obsessions palette, or maybe even the Lime Crime Venus XL palette, you wouldn't need a palette such as this. However, if you don't have those already in your collection and you were hoping to experiment with a red tone eyeshadow palette, this is a great one, especially at the affordable price of $12 or $9, which was the price I paid. I created 2 looks using the palette. My first look didn't turn out so well. It wasn't really anything having to do with the palette. It was just my technique or the colors I chose. And I did notice that the eyeshadows, they all really pull red. Now, I know that it is a red themed palette and you're probably like, well, that's not surprising. It's monochromatic. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention that it's not going to be the most versatile palette. You're going to get a red tone look. And that even goes for if you use these shades down here at the bottom. Even those shades pull really, really red on the eye. And so if you're not really comfortable with red eyeshadow, but you've been wanting to try out the trend, then this is a good start because, again, it is affordable and the quality is pretty good. I would just say to avoid staining of your eyelids, definitely set down a base and set it with powder as well, just to avoid the staining. Overall, the quality is good. It's not my favorite Colourpop eyeshadow palette, but that's just because I don't frequently wear red shades on my eyes, so I don't see myself getting a lot of use out of this, but it's a great choice to experiment with red tone shades, which are not really very much of the everyday, at least not for me. But overall, I thought it was a really cute themed palette and I really like it. So I like the look that I came up with. Let me know what you think and if you picked up anything from the collection. That's everything I have for you today. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to give it a like for me. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, as I would love to have you join me for a future video, which should be really soon. Thank you again for watching. I hope you're doing really well, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon on my next one. Bye-bye.